Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Digital Toolbox Podcast. This is a podcast where we bring on owners of businesses in the hardscape, landscape, and lawn care space. And today we have a very, very special guest. We have Kevin from Muskoka Landscapers. Kevin, introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. Kevin Scott, Muskoka Landscapers. I've been in business 17 years and we're all about Muskoka and landscaping in Muskoka.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Kevin, I gotta ask you, you've built quite an empire. So before we even talk about how you started this thing, who was Kevin Scott in high school?
In high school, Kevin Scott was worried about three things: girls, cars, and the odd beer. I didn't finish high school. I quit high school in grade 12 and began working in the landscape industry and actually in the golf industry. Golf construction. But I played a lot of sports. I played lacrosse until I was 21. Still play hockey now. Love the golf. But a lot of that started in my high school days.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And when you say that you were working in the golf industry, what were you doing specifically?
Golf construction. So that was, mid to late 90s where there was a large golf boom in Canada. And certainly in Ontario, there was a lot of new construction going on, all the way up to about 2008, which is when we started in business, 2007, 2008. A lot of like new golf course construction. So a lot of the shaping, the clearing of the earth, sodding, irrigation, seeding, some maintenance. Usually we were trying to turn them over for maintenance, but clubhouse construction, there was kind of a city super that looked after a little bit of everything.
Well, that's interesting. And you know what, Kevin, would you mind if I ask you because I didn't think about it, but yeah, those golf courses do need irrigation and a lot of it because they're huge. So how,
Right.
how does that work? Like how annoying is it to do irrigation for a golf course?
Well, it's easier than you think. I mean, if you picture a residential project, an existing city property and multiply the size of it by hundreds and hundreds of acres, but big retention ponds, big main lines, smaller lines in the fairways around the greens, and it was amazing the evolution of irrigation in golf as golf became more and more prevalent in the 90s, and just how pristine everybody wanted them to be. Irrigation really was kind of at the forefront of making improvements for maintenance and quality of turf and quality of the green surfacing, how well they would receive a ball. There was a lot of technology that went into it, but honestly, very similar to residential irrigation, just bigger pipe.
Bigger pie. Wow, that's super interesting actually. You made me think about that for a second. Like, oh, you're right. There is irrigation and a lot of it because it has to be perfect.
Right, right.
Man, and so Kevin, so how did you go from, okay, you dropped out of high school, you started working in the landscaping and the golf industry. How did you transition over to starting your own business?
Yeah, I worked for a company. I actually went back to school, got a horticulture degree through an apprenticeship program that was offered in Ontario. And when I came out of that program, I got a job with a company called Eaton Molloy that was heavily into the golf construction boom. When I started there, there was roughly 90 employees. It grew to about 400 in the 10 years that I was there. But because I was kind of thrown in, not I shouldn't say thrown in, but I became a site super because the company grew so quickly, probably earlier than I should have. But once I became a site super, I was managing, 80 to 100 people on site, a lot of trades. But then I was also starting to manage budgets, doing more scheduling or, long-term scheduling, and working with the office more. Then that, kind of, I really like the, I really like the challenge of the goal setting towards a budget or towards a price. And that was kind of where the bug kind of got started for me. And then kind of 10 years into that, we had a young family. We were living in Toronto. My family all lived in Muskoka. Now my wife's family had recently moved to Muskoka. And I just knew it was something I always wanted to do. And I was kind of at that, I was 33, 34 years old and in a very good position. I had an excellent job there and I loved it. Good pension, truck, all the things you'd want with a good job. But I wanted to try it. And I think, like I said earlier, when I did try it, it was more because I thought I would make more money. It wasn't necessarily that I thought I would have more freedom or become a business owner or, get into all the other things that I'm into business wise now. But after 4 or 5 years of being in business, I slowly started to collect and learn and and really got excited about being an entrepreneur more than I was a landscaper.
Wow, that's super cool. That is super cool. And you at the time you were 33 years old, so you already had your kids, you already had your family set in a way. Were you scared in any way, or did you feel more pressure because you had that in
Absolutely.
place?
Yeah, I mean, I think my oldest was 5 and my youngest was 2. But again, like great company to work for, great wage, great truck, benefits, pension, like everything, dental, like all of it was tough to leave. Um, but fortunately, the company that I worked for, we were doing a golf project in Muskoka. There was a private lake at the back of the golf course. I had built a great relationship with the owner through the construction of the golf course. So when I started the business, we were able to land some great projects right out of the gate on this private lake, with people that we already knew who paid well. So the transition was very scary, but the scariness ended very quickly.
Those projects started coming in, yeah. So that fear was almost like, wow, okay, cool. And how different was because you were already working with the office, you were already managing projects. So how different was that for your own business? Did you still struggle, or was it rather easier for you?
It was a lot different when it's your own money. It's a lot tougher to make decisions. But funny, I say that still now all the time at the office. Like it's easy to make decisions when you have money in the bank, and you tend to make the right ones. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a learning curve, and there's a lot of ins and outs with taxes and how do you pay yourself, and do you pay yourself, and how much money do I leave in for this, and what's the backup fund, and especially when you're a new business and you're buying new equipment and vehicles. I can remember the first few checks we got were like for $16,000 to $20,000 every couple of weeks from this first project we were doing. And I thought,
Mhm.
man, this is incredible. Look at all the money we're making. And as time goes on, you start to realize, yeah, you had no overhead. You weren't paying yourself. A couple of the guys were using their own trucks. Like there was all these things that made it seem greater than it was. And again, I got part of the learning. Like when you start doing things well and having, proper systems and the right insurance and the right trailers and the right trucks and equipment, those costs add up. So you gotta know your numbers. And I would say for the first 4 or 5 years, I was just lucky enough that we were always busy, never really trying to grow. It just kind of happened. So a lot of it was pretty organic, and so was my learning more out of necessity, not because I was trying to. Which
Wow,
which
that's
isn't
fun.
which isn't ideal. Because I'm sure I made a lot of mistakes along the way as well.
100%. And that's the fear about entrepreneurship. It's something that I think about because I'm 24 and I'm relatively new at my business compared to yours, right? And I always listen to mentors and they always say, it's scary because you're doing things and you don't exactly know if it's gonna work or not until a couple years down the line, and then you find out. So it's fucking scary. It's like, damn, is this gonna work? Am I doing the right thing? Did you ever feel like that when you were running your business at first?
Yeah, well, lots of times. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times our first 5 years or 6 years, we were always in our line of credit, right? We were always overextended.
Mm.
Um, we were way too curious about waiting to get paid, out of fear of upsetting somebody rather than saying, oh, like, it's time to pay, or I'm not coming back until you pay. That kind of
Mm.
thing gets easier as move forward. But yeah, it's a scary thing. And I've been in business 17 years now, and you still have moments. I wouldn't say scared, but you're protective or you anticipate. Right now, I'm not sure what it's like in Jersey, but our market here is really slowed down. Certainly outside of the Muskoka area, we are in a little bit of a bubble. But as recently as yesterday, I had other contractors that I know calling me looking for work because they're very limited on what they have right now. So, um,
Why
thankful
is
to
that
have been
happening right
proactive.
now?
Pardon me?
Why is that happening right now?
Well, in Canada, our interest rates are through the roof right now. Inflation was through the roof. It's slowly coming down, but interest rates haven't. So you have this large portion of the population that's not spending anymore. So, there's a lot of companies, as an example, in the city that during COVID were specializing in $200,000 to $300,000 backyards where they would do fiberglass pool, little cabana, some interlock patio, fire pit. They did an outdoor kitchen, and that was their gig. And they were pumping those things out everywhere. Well, now there's none of those going on. right? Because people in that market have pulled back because their interest rates are so high, and depending on how you're mortgaged, it can make a big difference.
Wow, yeah, I could 100%. I mean, yeah, it's kind of similar here because now they're saying that fast food is like a luxury item, like even
Right.
that getting more expensive, and that the people with higher incomes, a lot of them are starting to shop at inside Walmart, which are more expensive, more cheap, more affordable.
Right.
Before they would go and shop at higher, more expensive places, and now they're coming to the cheaper, more affordable places. So that's kind of interesting. And you're absolutely right. I mean, and also hardscaping, it's really not a necessity, right? It's a want. So
Right.
people are going to put necessities on top of that. So man, yeah, I can imagine. But I mean, you guys being so big, I'm sure you guys are already booked out for quite some time. Um, so how are you guys? How booked are you guys right now, actually?
We're booked for the season. We've got a little bit of room in the fall that we could probably fit in another project or a small project.
Hmm.
Um, but I would say that that's not unusual for us to be booked out a year and a half, even longer, for some projects, depending on what stage we get involved at. But we're definitely seeing like a lot more price checking, not as frequent new estimates coming in the door, and certainly projects that are smaller or on projects where people may have a mortgage. Because, at the end of the day, a lot of the big projects that we do, properties that are in the 10 to $25 million range, there's likely not a mortgage. If there is, it's minimal. So those types of projects are still forging ahead because the people have the money to do it. It's more of the people that have bought, say, like a $3 million cottage, had to mortgage some of it. They're now not spending an extra couple $100,000 on fixing up the landscaping. So those jobs have kind of dried up. And I think that's why we're seeing, kind of that slowdown for some of the guys that specialize in that type of work.
Wow, that's super interesting. And right there, you mentioned that depending on what stage you guys come in at, you guys are able to move things forward. So does that mean that you guys don't always start from the very beginning, from the initial site visit consultation? You guys sometimes pick up projects that are left over that weren't finished by other contractors?
No, I mean more because we still do get calls on projects that are maybe half complete, like as far as the building goes. But
Hmm.
locally, in our municipality, you now need a site plan agreement before you can get a building permit. And the site plan agreement is basically a design of what you're going to do landscaping wise, where you're going to replant, what sort of vegetation, what part of it's native, what type of trees are you using. So we're getting a lot more building architects and builders coming to us to help them through that process with the township. So now we're getting involved before the building's even started. So
Wow.
so when that, and then you build a relationship with the customer through that process, let them get their building permit, and then that typically rolls right into landscape design. And then, so now you're forecasting stuff that you're not even going to start for a year, right? Until
Hmm.
the building's further along. So it's been a bit of a new process for everybody in the past 3 or 4 years. I would say for forecasting and for business, it's been good for us because we do design build. We are fortunate that we get a lot of people come for help with design.
That's beautiful. Like imagine like I know a lot of the contractors that are listening in, like guys, like imagine like you're getting calls before the building is even done, asking for help. How do we do this? How do we do that? And like Kevin said, you probably end up a lot of the time building a relationship with them, and when the building is done, they're gonna call you to handle the landscaping because they're gonna be, oh, that's the guy that helped us out. Let's
Right.
go with him. So
Yeah.
that's
It
awesome.
makes it a much easier conversation. That's for sure. And it's a lot easier to negotiate as well. Like it's your job to lose.
What do you mean by that? If you drop to lose?
Well, if you've already built a relationship through the site plan approval process and the landscape design,
Hmm.
you've already got a connection. Unless you really botch the estimate or try and overcharge, you're likely going to get the project because you already have that connection. You understand their vision, what they're after. We probably have them do a few sites to look at scope and understand how things are budgeted and how things are priced. Because here, like in our market, in the projects we work on, a lot of our stuff is anywhere from say 500,000 to 2 million for a landscape project. So it's really nice to get customers out because I think, and I'm sure you know this in your business too. Like people get sticker shocked if you start showing a bunch of pictures and saying, this is what we're going to do. Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. And then you build your estimate and they're like, wow, that's 5 times as much as I thought it was going to be. But by getting them out to projects and being able to show them this job was 700,000, this job was 1.5 million, they kind of get a better sense of what they're doing on their property, what they like and don't like, speeds up the design process, but also they don't get that holy shit factor when they get their estimate, right? They've already got a sense of where they're going to be. I think it's a mistake
That's
a
a
lot
great
of
point.
small businesses make is they don't not that all customers need to be educated, but you need to walk them through the process of how things are priced, what they're going to cost, what they're worth, and why some things are better than others, or why things are more expensive than others. Um, and I think that holds true for any business, whether you're selling jeans or you're playing stone. I think it's preparing them for where their estimate could be is a good thing to practice.
I agree with you 1,000%, and you actually didn't just get me the idea because you're right. I do get a lot of sticker shock. It's like, okay, oh, you're gonna charge me this much for the website and for running these ads? And I have to kind of work on, okay, well, if you spend 10,000 to make $1 million, would you do it? So like, I have to break it down there. But you're right. If I was to start incorporating before we even get to them seeing the price, I'm just mentioning, oh, this cost this or this project was that. So how early on do you start doing that with your customers?
Pretty early. I mean, I would say if we haven't been through the site plan process with them and say they've got a project on the go, it's half built, and they call
Mhm.
us to get involved with design, we just, inevitably every first meeting before we even started the design, it's like, so what do you think it's going to cost? They want to get a sense of what it's going to be. And I usually just start with like, you know, we roughly looked at about 3,000 feet of flagstone today. That's $100 a square foot. Then you got planting, you got irrigation, you got lighting, you got the spa, you got stairs, you got the outdoor kitchen. And, things like, I try and keep it a little bit vague because there's a lot of variance. And when you say outdoor kitchen, it could be 30 grand or 200 grand, depending on what they want. So often what we do now when we're building our estimates is we have templates for different kitchens and different appliances within the kitchens. So that they pick the budget. We don't, because inevitably I could say, oh, your kitchen is going to be 30 grand, but then they want a Kalamazoo grill and, it's a big wraparound with a seating area and barbecue and a pizza oven and, it's 100 grand. And then we look bad because we didn't budget enough. So now we have them pick the budget at the beginning. Carry 30,000, 50,000, 80,000. Because inevitably you take that same person to a few kitchen suppliers and they pick the nicest stuff. So and I'm sure it's the same with your business. Like you start telling people what you can do for them and how you can do it. And they're like, yeah, I want to do that. And I want to make $1 million and I want all the stuff that comes with great marketing. But man, I didn't think it was going to be that much. So if they have a sense of it at the get-go, I think it just goes much smoother. They trust you a little bit more. You're honest with them, gives them a little bit more input on how to control things. Yeah, I think it's a good tool that's underutilized by a lot of businesses.
I agree. I agree 1,000%. You just made me think back actually. Do you know who Alex Ramosi is actually?
I don't.
He's an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. He's like a multimillionaire, and his business is now acquiring other businesses. So he puts out a lot of free content so that business owners can implement the content and then grow their business. So the one that he can acquire them, that's his play.
Okay.
And he's a wise guy. And that example that you mentioned made me think of him because he has an example where if you think of like a frozen yogurt or like an ice cream shop, if they have the ice cream bowl in their hand and they fill it for you, they put you tell them, oh, I want chocolate, and they put chocolate in there, and then they tell you it's $8. They're like, wow, $8, that's a lot of money. But then if they give you the cup and then you walk around and you pull the levers, I want this, I want this, I want this. And then you come up to the front and they tell you, oh, it's $8. They're like, oh, it's worth it though, because I picked it. Like I have
Right.
control over it. I put it in there, so I should pay it now.
Yeah, I've seen now. You like that.
Yeah, it made me think of that right there. That's funny.
Right. Nice.
And by the way, Kevin, I was looking at your website earlier, and you guys have the stages broken down very, very professionally, I must say. So, can you guide us through, like, let's say that I'm a customer and I want a project done. Can you guide us start to finish how that looks like for you guys? Just so that, because a lot of the contractors here, they're a little bit smaller and they may not know how the big guys like you guys are doing it. So, like, let's walk through an example, right? So, like, I want an outdoor kitchen. I want a patio. That's all you know. What's the next step?
The next step is to visit the site. I always like to go to the site and meet with the customer.
Mm,
Um, and I think from there you really get a good sense of what they are, what they're looking for. You can tell what the building's like. If you meet inside, it's always nice to get inside and have a look at kind of what's in the house to get a better sense of their flair. What sort of appliances they have. Um, and just get a better sense of them. And then through conversation, you can usually find out a lot more, about kids and the ages and, how much you entertain and what sort of space are you looking for and how do you think you'll use it and have you seen things in the past that you've liked. So it's more of a conversation just to kind of figure out what to suggest to them and where to start. And then from there, it's really, we roll into design. We get a design contract set up for what we think the design is going to be worth. We get that approved and paid. We go through the design process, which is usually a little back and forth, a couple reiterations of change this, or I don't like that, or take this bigger. And one of the things, for a kitchen and a patio, I probably wouldn't go through this part of the process, but if it was a full landscape job, we would then take them to sites before we started the design. Because then you can really get into the nitty gritty of, this is a 5 foot pathway. These are 1/4 inch joints. Do you like the size of the joint? These ones are quality. These ones are 1/4 inch chip, and get really
mm,
detailed so that now your designers aren't doing things that they're not going to like.
I
They've already
see.
picked it. They've got a good sense of the size. Do you like the feel of this size of patio? How much furniture do you want on it? So taking them to other projects and the same on a kitchen and patio idea, I would still take them to our kitchen suppliers because then now they're really in charge of, what sort of cabinetry do they like? Is there going to be some masonry components? What are the appliances that are going to go in? How big are they going to be? Like, do we need a 36-inch grill or a 54-inch grill? And here's the associated pricing. And then, yeah, basically once all that research and collection's done, we pump out the design, get that finalized, get the quote prepared, get a contract, get a deposit, schedule the work, and then at some point execute the work, get them paid, get the customer happy, make sure they know how to use everything and maintain everything properly. And then we do, once it's all done and kind of handshakes are finished, the project's over. Often projects get extended and things get added and, so it doesn't necessarily end with one project, but we always like to do a 1 year inspection as well. So whenever we've completed the projects, the project manager on the job will put into his phone the date that they completed, and then they'll put a 1 year reminder in for site visit at, Candy's place. And then we'll just set that up. We'll go back and just see, like, is it working out the way you wanted? Is there anything wrong? Would you change anything?
Hmm.
If their patio, maybe the stones moved or something, we'll tweak that up for them and
Free of charge, or is there a fee
free
for
of
that?
charge. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. You see, and something like that, I can imagine really reassures a client knowing that the company's gonna come back, and if something's wrong, they'll take a look at it because they don't want to feel like, oh, they just took my money, now they're gone, and now I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Nobody
Nobody,
wants to feel
nobody
like that.
wants to feel like that. And I think it just reassures them that you want to make sure that they're still happy with it and that your work is held up well. And I also think it just keeps you that much fresher in their mind when they're at the next dinner party and somebody is looking for a landscaper or a new kitchen or whatever it might be. Relationships,
100%, 100%.
relationships.
Relationship. That is correct. And talking about that, Kevin, how do most of you guys' leads come in? Are you guys like mostly word of mouth? Or are you guys getting leads from ads, from your website, your social media? And are you guys creating a lot more content? What does that look like?
Yeah, we do get a lot. We leads from referrals. I'd say probably 90%. And often it's an email to me from a previous customer introducing a new customer. but we do get a lot from social as well, a lot from Insta. And those are generally like new calls or cold calls. And I'd say that, yeah, it could be 10 or 15% of our business.
You mentioned a lot of them are
Yeah.
introductions from
Sorry. Yeah.
clients.
So yeah, I would say like close to 90% is referral based, where it's a customer, sending me an email introducing another person, or their project manager if I wasn't involved, or to one of the designers. The designers build a lot of great relationships as well. And then yeah, probably 10 or 15% of our work comes from Instagram, or random people looking us up or finding us on socials,
Gotcha,
which
man.
is
That is
great.
awesome.
Which is great. Yeah, it's huge, and it's probably been like that for the past 8 or 9 years. And it's the best setup you can have because you've already got a connection with the customer to your other customer.
1000%. Yeah, and there's nothing more like, especially if it's like a three-way introduction where like they're on the chat to like, hey, this is my friend, and
Yeah,
then their friend is like, oh, this person must be good. They're being introduced. It's good.
right.
So it has a lot more weight. And talking about that, Kevin, actually, so I know there's a lot of other landscapers and hardscapers in Canada that are doing amazing work, and you guys are one of them, right? So how do you think that you guys stack when you look at somebody like Cardinal Landscaping or one of those bigger guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a much different area. Their volume is likely much higher than ours. We tend to deal with, and I'm not saying that they don't, but our projects are relatively technical. There's usually pools and spas and saunas and kitchens and outdoor masonry and a large hardscape component, maybe even some buildings.
Mhm.
Um, and we really are lakefront, like that. That's our niche. Is we're working the main three lakes in Muskoka. Often we're on some of the smaller lakes as well. But yeah, I think in comparison, we're just in a different market. They're a lot more um, similar type of work in city properties and likely more volume than us, where we are. We tend to run with 33 to 35 people, and we've kind of stuck to that for the past 4 or 5 years. It seems to be a bit of a sweet spot for us. Plus some trades.
Gotcha. And so that's 35 employees?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And the majority of those, are those field guys or are they back office people?
We've got three designers, and then three other people that do accounting administration or GMs in the office. And then the PMs are kind of in and out as their days go on, depending on what they're working on, or if they're, working on estimates, they're usually in the office. Yeah, the balance would be field staff, so likely 26, 27 in the field.
That's amazing, man. That is awesome. And what is a typical project? Because the things that you guys do, like that's the one thing I've noticed too. You guys tend to have, like, more or less, you guys tend to have more things in one project than other companies that I've seen. Like you guys, when there's a patio, there's probably going to be outdoor kitchen. There's probably going to be a pool. There's probably going to be a spa. So you guys
Right.
have a lot going on. So what does the average job? How many employees does it take?
Yeah, it can vary, and a lot of it varies on schedule. We generally are operating with three-person crews, but often we'll double up or triple up when we can, depending on the scale of the project. One of the things that we run into a lot in Muskoka because of elevation or logistics and trees, because most of the areas that we're working in are fairly forested,
Mhm.
is we're working our way out of an area. We're starting at the boathouse, working our way up to the cottage and around the cottage. So access is often an issue. So it's not every project that we can put multiple crews on. So logistically, there just isn't room to work without cutting yourself off. But yeah, I would say most projects are 3 to 6 people, and then sub trades. We sub our masonry, we sub our concrete work, we'll sub the outdoor kitchens, irrigation and lighting we do in house, planting and everything we do in house. Sometimes we sub it depending on the scope. Like if it's a really big planting job, we'll sub that in,
Mhm.
and a lot of that depends on what labor we have available too. But yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Cool. And what about tools, Kevin? That's one thing I wanted to ask you about. I know that you guys always have the option to rent tools. When do you guys know when you want to buy some sort of big machinery or whether you want to rent it out? What's how do you decide that?
We don't often rent. Every crew has a site trailer or container. and it's kind of outfitted with everything that they could need on just about any project. And it's got a fridge and a coffee maker, microwave, that kind of thing, so that they're self-sufficient on site, battery chargers and self-charge tools. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think, yeah, rentals, the only thing we would really rent often is like a big ball bag to like compact a court, a tennis court or something like that. Maybe a big hammer drill if we had to drill a bunch of rocks. But we have two or three of those in house, so it really depends on where they are. So we don't really rent too much. Sometimes a larger excavator, we might need like a 20 ton or something to move some rock or set a big wall.
Mhm.
Um, Barges, we rent a lot of barges for island work. Um, but that's about it. And it's not very often. Like I bet you we don't spend more than 100 grand a year on rentals.
Oh, that's cool to know. Actually, that put a big visual on it. So that's cool. So you guys pretty much have everything, and like you said, like you may have, for example, three of those big jackhammers to like split big rocks, but you have three of them, and even though you're not using them, you can maybe have a guy go pick it up, or maybe have him drop it off, something like that. So you guys
Right.
communicate internally like that, and that actually leads into my next question: how do you guys all stay on the same page? Do you guys use any CRMs or any software?
Yeah, we use a product called LMN. Landscape Management Network is our software program. So we do all of our estimating, all of our time tracking, job costing, time sheets. Like all the guys use it for their time sheets and payroll. Um, but that's about it, to be honest. We have a couple of little things that we do. Monday mornings, we everybody meets at the yard, and that's usually when there's a safety talk. Guys restock their bins, whether it's paint, filter cloth, any specialty items they might need from the yard. They get restocked on like coffee and cold drinks and protein bars and stuff like that for their bin. We have a person at the yard that kind of gets things ready for each crew based on what they like. And then we have Tuesday morning scheduling meeting every Tuesday at 9 o'clock with the office and TMs. But I tell you, one of the biggest things we've ever used, and this is free, and anybody who's not using it in the construction world is missing out. It's called the four. It's called the 4 at 4. We call it the 4 at 3. Um, but it's an app that the guys can download, and it's 4 questions every day. And so this is them answering these questions and sending it to the project manager. I get them, and our GM gets them. And it's what did I get completed today? What am I doing tomorrow? What do I need from you? Which meaning like what they need from us in the office
Right.
or operations, and what's slowing you down. So with those 4 questions, they've kind of already answered we know what they need, if anything. They know what they need for the next day. We know what they've done. So when we have 8 or 10 projects on the go, those 4 at 3s alone, I can spend a week in my office if I am, and I still know exactly where we are in every project, right? Because I'm
Wow.
getting 4 or 5 pictures of what they worked on and of the site, and um, it's a very useful tool, and it's a free app.
So how does it work? You download it on your phone, and how does it know to send it to the project manager?
Yeah, so it's called the 4 at 4. We call it the 4 at 3 because we felt like 4 o'clock was too late the day to get it in case they need something in the morning. So we at 3 o'clock every day, all of our site supers sit down and fill that out and take some photos of what they've done, or maybe it's a problem area or something they're struggling with, or a
Mhm.
broken machine, or could be anything in the photos. But yeah, they send that in every day at 3 o'clock. Our operations manager, because it's usually him dealing with the answers for them, he tries to be in the office at 3, and then he can start if he needs more delivery trucks or he needs to move a piece of machinery for somebody, or somebody needs a chipper or an excavator or whatever it is. He's there to deal with it. But that is a very useful tool because it keeps between the Monday morning meeting and then the 4 at 3 every day. Everybody's in touch all week.
Wow, that is super cool.
Yeah.
That is super cool right there. I've actually never heard of anybody ever even mention that. But that's a great way to stay on track. And then what would you do? I guess you would update any information that you can on Element, and then that way.
Yeah, well, we do it right through the app. So like we can, because it comes in an email, like an email form.
Mhm.
So everybody that's on it can respond, hey, looks great, or I'll look after that for you, or I'll be on site tomorrow to help you with that, or the machine's going to be there at 2 o'clock, whatever it is. So all that correspondence happens right away. They have the answers they need. We know what they need. And then the next day there's another one. So every day that they're working, we get one of those at 3 o'clock from every job.
Man, that is a beautiful way to stay organized and a beautiful way to go about it. I love the fact that you guys are using software, by the way. It's super cool. Super cool.
The other thing that it's very helpful with is the project managers then take the photos and put them into the customer file. So now we've got 4 or 5 photos a day for the entire project. So at the end, we've got hundreds and hundreds of photos, if not thousands, that a year later, the plumber hit the whatever, or somebody done to the electrical line. We can probably have a photo that shows exactly where it is, how deep it was, what was in it. So it's a nice tool for as-bills too when the project's done. If you do as-bills, it's a great tool to show people where certain things are. So
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
I can't say enough about it. It changed our business. We probably started using it 7 years ago when it first came out, 7, 8 years ago. And I would say that is one of it's free. It takes them 2 minutes to fill it out, and you know exactly what's going on your job, even if you're not there for a week or two.
Dude, yeah, 1000%, 1000%. And it's a great way to stay organized too. Like those pictures for documentation purposes or worth like you can't put a value amount on that. That's super helpful. Super helpful.
It's nice for the customer too, because on Fridays the project managers will send a customer update, so they'll include some of those photos from the week. This is what was completed. This is what we need from you. This is what we're waiting for. It's kind of like a 4 and 3 for the customers on Fridays.
Man, that is amazing. And then one last thing here, because I do want to be respectful of your time here, but if you were to start over, what are some pieces of advice that you would give to yourself, like a younger landscaper that's coming into the business, wanting to make a name for himself? Maybe he's just doing landscaping right now, but he wants to get into hardscaping. He wants to be doing those large projects one day. What advice would you give to a person like that?
I've been asked this before, and so I think I've got a few. I would have hired office staff sooner because I think I was working ridiculous hours. I wasn't good at it. I wasn't fast at it. And I'm talking like accounting, administration. As the owner, your time is much better focused on other things. And when you hire somebody who does that all the time, even if it's a subcontractor, they do a way better job and do it in half the time. So that would be one. Don't be afraid to hire. I think everybody gets afraid to hire office staff because they think of the cost rather than the savings, or the accuracy that they'll bring. Yeah, I think that's one. I think honoring your work is a big one. Whether you lost money on the job or you're not going to get paid to fix something that broke on you, honoring your work goes a long way. And I think just on a personal level, you just feel better. Even if the customer and you didn't get along, or the problem caused an issue with you and the customer, I think going back and fixing it regardless of the relationship, there's a lot of value in that.
I love
Um,
it.
yeah, and then I think too, one of the bigger things that's really helped us too is just more focus on staff, focus on the team, more like teams number one, not profit, not customers, teams number one. And if your team's strong and you have a great culture, you'll have happy customers and you'll make money.
Man, I love it. I love it. So let's recap on those. So you mentioned don't be afraid to sub out work. Don't be afraid to hire staff. Think about the savings, not about the cost. Value the work and value the relationship. Oh
Yeah,
man,
all those things are key. There's lots of things that are key, but those are some easy ones to do just by focusing on them.
I love it, man. I love it. And Kevin, man, you've been a pleasure to have on this podcast. Like you've got some serious gem for us, and a lot of the landscapers listening in, maybe even some future customers that are maybe listening in as well. So I really really appreciate your time, Kevin. Have an amazing rest of your evening. And Kevin, if the audience wants to reach you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, my email's on social media if you go into our info. But I'm pretty easy to find, Kevin at muskokalandscapers.ca. But yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to chat. And thank you for today. It was fun. Always love doing these things and love listening to your other episodes as well. It's a good thing you got going. It's awesome.
Thanks, Kevin. Well, it was a pleasure. I mean, my goal is to bring on guys like yourselves here, so it's definitely working. So, Kevin, I really appreciate you, man. Take care, stay safe.
All right, man. Cheers.